Hey, my name is Justin, and I want to talk to you for just a moment about something called Infuse that you may have heard about or you're hearing about now. To get us there, quick story, I was vacationing with my family about a month ago, and had a book with me that I had wanted to get to for some time but didn't have the time to. And anyway, I jumped into it and just really enjoyed it on so many levels. It's called Shop Class as Soulcraft, and I first actually heard about it from a little snippet from the Colbert Show, and so of course quality reading. And but no, the more I got into it, the fellow who wrote it just had some really intriguing things to say, including this. In chapter 2, he talks about this real problem that we actually all face, where we live in a time, a place, a cultural condition where thinking and doing have been in many ways divorced. He talked about some of the history of that. How at the beginning of the last century, there had been a real movement to take the decision-making stuff off of the shop floor. But you need to understand, when this happened, when this began to happen, it was met with great resistance. Folks were used to building things and making things and repairing things with a deep understanding of what those things were, and then, of course, how to get it done. So thinking and doing were just natural. They were how people lived. But this kind of new way of segregating those things became more and more a pattern, because really to try to lessen the money that was going out and increase profits and a variety of other things as well. But what's interesting, though, the author tells this really engaging story of how this opposition really looked. Henry Ford, as he developed, I believe it was his first factory, at least one of his first ones, had to hire somewhere between 912, 917 people in order to keep 100. People were so repulsed by this thinking and doing divorce that they wouldn't even work in that way. They felt it was somehow against this fabric that we're made with, this thing we're made to do. And the more and more I read that chapter, I began to think about so many things in life, and one of the things is this idea of our following Jesus life. And Infuse is something that I'm really looking forward to, because I think it helps us address that. As folks who are learning to follow Jesus well in the places that he has sent us, what do we need to know and do? Too often I find that we either fall into one or the other of those camps. We kind of either or on that. But Infuse is about a way of thinking, about a way of seeing this missionary God who has saved us, who is working in us, who has planted us in the neighborhoods he's planted us in, and so forth. A way of seeing him, a way of thinking, a way of viewing the world and one another and this place we're in like he does. And yet, at the same exact time, doing something, activating that theology, mobilizing us. And so that's what Infuse is about. How can we think and do in a holistic way that honors God, that very much frees us up for the stuff we really long for, the stuff we're made for, the stuff we keep trying to get in all kinds of other modes, whether it be buying stuff or relational stuff or abuse of stuff, whatever. We find that, but you know what else we also find? We find what God has always been up to. We find that the actual places we live, the city, gets in on this deep joy of God's redeeming work of making all things new. And so Infuse is a learning track. It's a learning community. It's a collaborative effort between you and me and people just like us who raise kids, who work jobs, but who are following this missionary God, Jesus, into this place for his glory and for the joy he's made us for and for the joy of Spokane. So I would really encourage all of you missionaries out there to join us for Infuse, to lend your voice, to lend your brain, to lend your hands, to lend your heart. And we're just going to go at it and together see what God would do in our city and beyond as a result. So if you have any questions, there's somebody around that can answer those for you, and we'll jump in together. Thanks.